This was only a few months ago from the time I'm writing this. I work an overnight job at a convenience store. I'm usually home sleeping during the day and awake during the night, even on my days off, because I like to keep my body on the same schedule. This past month I witnessed something I will never forget. It was around 3 a.m. Everyone in the neighborhood was asleep. It was raining, one of those steady, cold rains that just makes everything feel heavier. I was off that night. I had just finished a movie, made something small to eat, and was getting ready to feed my cat before heading to bed. That's when I heard it. Not loud, but sharp. I froze. Then again. Someone or something was at my door. Now, for context, I live in a 2-bedroom house at the end of a cul-de-sac. My front porch doesn't have much coverage, and I don't have a ring cam or anything like that. Just a peephole. But I didn't look through it. I just stood there, in the dark, trying to convince myself it was nothing. But then my cat, a usually calm tabby, let out this strange growl. Low, uneasy, and completely unlike her. She bolted into the hallway. That's when my dog, who was asleep in my room, suddenly jumped up and started barking toward the stairs. He never does that. He's old, lazy, even, but this time, he was locked in, growling toward the upstairs landing. Which made no sense, because no one should have been upstairs. That's when I heard it. Soft, deliberate, on the second floor. And I don't mean creaking pipes or settling wood. I know those sounds, I mean wait, steps. I grabbed the closest thing I could find, a metal flashlight, and made my way up the stairs slowly. The dog wouldn't follow, he just stood there at the bottom, tail stiff. When I reached the landing, it was dead silent. I checked every room. Nothing, and for a moment I thought maybe I was just tired, maybe I'd imagined it, but then, something slammed against the front door. So loud it shook the wall, I sprinted back downstairs and flicked on the porch light. No one, the street was empty, just rain falling in sheets and wind blowing hard. I walked up to the door and looked through the peephole, but the glass was fogged, like someone had pressed their face right against it. I didn't sleep, I just sat there with the dog at my feet, the flashlight in my hand, and my eyes fixed on the front door. By 5 a.m. That's when I heard a new sound. My cat was staring at the back window, meowing, like she was trying to get my attention. I turned around, and outside, barely visible through the glass, was a person standing at the edge of the yard, not moving, just standing. I couldn't make out a face, just the outline, and I swear they were barefoot, in the mud. I reached for my phone to call the police, and realized it was dead. I keep it charged every night. I have no explanation for why it died, but it was just off. By the time I looked back up, the figure was gone. When the sun finally came up, I went outside, and what I saw sent a chill down my spine. Footprints, in the mud. Circling the house, stopping at each window, even the second floor. There were muddy footprints on the outside window ledge upstairs. I checked the lock on the front door. It was slightly cracked, like someone had tried to pry it open. I filed a police report. They sent someone to look around, but there wasn't much they could do. No footage. No face. Just a story and some prints in the dirt. That was a few weeks ago. But last night, around 3 a.m., it was back. This happened last fall. I was house sitting for my aunt while she was in Florida for a week. It was a quiet neighborhood. One of those where each house feels a little too far from the next. She lived at the edge of a small wooded area. No back neighbors. Just trees. Her house was old, with creaky floors and a draft that whistled through the windows at night. This was the third night alone. I had the TV off, reading on my phone. The only light came from a lamp in the corner, and the only sound was the soft ticking of the antique wall clock above the fireplace. I hadn't noticed it before, but that night it felt deafening. Each second stretched longer than the last, tapping into the silence like a tiny hammer. I remember looking up from my phone and realizing how dark the windows were. No blinds, just wide panes of glass facing the blackness outside. I stood to close the curtains, but something made me stop halfway. There was a shape in the yard. Not close, just far enough to make out, but not enough to explain. It looked like a person, still as stone, standing near the edge of the woods. I froze, watching it. My heart started to pound. But I told myself it was a tree, or a bush shaped weird by the shadows. I turned the porch light on, but the figure didn't move. It just stood there, perfectly still. I reached to grab my phone, but realized I left it charging in the kitchen. I didn't want to look away, not even for a second. I backed away slowly, turned the hallway light on and walked toward the kitchen. When I came back, I looked out the window again, and the figure was gone. Not moved, not shifted, completely gone. I tried to shake the feeling, but it stuck with me. I kept the curtains shut that night and turned on the radio in the kitchen for some background noise. It picked up only static. I switched stations again and again, but all I got was that low hiss. I turned the volume down and walked back into the living room. That's when I heard it. A tap, then another. From the window behind the couch. I didn't turn around. Not right away. My blood felt frozen. The taps came again, soft and slow. When I finally turned, the tapping had stopped. I peeked through the gap in the curtains, and someone was standing right there, on the other side of the glass. Inches from my face, no expression, no movement, just staring straight at me through the window. I dropped to the floor instantly, hiding behind the couch. I didn't even breathe. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. I crawled across the floor toward the hallway, grabbing my phone off the counter on the way. I made it to the bedroom and shut the door quietly. I sat there in the dark, shaking. The ticking of the wall clock echoed through the house like footsteps, even though it was on the opposite side. I checked the phone, no signal, just an error message where the bars should be. I didn't understand. I had full reception earlier. Then I noticed something else. The static from the kitchen radio had gotten louder. I hadn't touched the volume. It started low and rose slowly, like something breathing through the speaker. I sat on the edge of the bed, not knowing what to do. I didn't want to look out the bedroom window, but I couldn't help it. I slowly pulled the curtain back. And there he was again, standing in the yard, closer this time, right in front of the window. He wasn't knocking. He wasn't saying anything, just watching, as if he had all the time in the world. I let the curtain fall and crawled backward. The radio cut out suddenly. The clock stopped ticking, and the silence that followed was louder than everything else combined. No footsteps. No wind. Just nothing. Then I heard a faint scraping sound, like fingernails trailing across glass. It came from the bedroom window. I didn't look. I couldn't. I climbed into the closet and shut the door behind me, curled up between coats and shoes. I stayed there for what felt like hours. No more scraping. No more tapping. Just silence. I must have dozed off because I woke up to light streaming in through the closet door. Stepped out cautiously. The clock had resumed ticking. The radio was off. I checked the yard. No one. No footprints. Nothing out of place. Just the same calm backyard and silent woods, but on the outside of the glass, on every window of the house, were smudged outlines, face-shaped, like someone had been leaning against the glass, watching. It was a Friday night when my parents left for the weekend. My dad had a work retreat and my mom was tagging along. I'm 16, so they figured I was old enough to handle being alone for 2 nights. They stocked the fridge, reminded me to lock up, and left around 5 p.m. As the sun started to set, I was already planning a lazy night of video games and junk food. The house felt bigger without them, quieter. I put on some music, microwaved a frozen pizza, and settled into the couch. Around 8, I noticed how quiet everything was. Not just calm, unnaturally still. Like the air wasn't moving, like the walls were holding in a breath. I shrugged it off and went upstairs, doors shut, game on, trying not to feel how empty the house really was. I didn't hear the first noise right away. It was subtle, like a tap, maybe a leaf hitting the window, or a twig shifting on the porch. But the second one, that was different. It came from the side door. 3 soft knocks spaced perfectly apart. No one uses that door. It opens into a tight strip of yard no one can stand in unless they're deliberately hiding. I froze, thumb hovering over the pause button. Slowly stood up and crept down the hallway. The stairs creaked a little under me. But I kept going, careful. I peeked around the corner and saw the porch light had turned on. Just enough to outline someone's figure at the side door. Motionless. Their head was tilted forward, like they were listening. I ducked out of view and backed into the laundry room, heart pounding. I had no idea who it was, but something felt off. I texted my parents. No reply. I waited, hoping they'd just leave, hoping this was some kind of delivery mistake or prank. But then the doorknob rattled gently. Not trying to break in, just trying. Testing. I crawled toward the kitchen and grabbed the biggest knife I could find. I wasn't thinking straight. My breathing was too loud. I crept back upstairs, locking my bedroom door behind me, sat against it and listened. Everything stayed quiet for a while. Too quiet. Then I heard it. Something creaking downstairs. It was a single heavy footstep. Then another. They weren't fast. They weren't shy. Whoever it was knew how to move in silence and was choosing not to. I stood completely still, not even daring to whisper. The floor below me groaned again, and I knew for certain someone was inside the house. My first thought was the basement door. It never shuts right unless you slam it. I'd done laundry earlier. I never checked the lock. My stomach sank. I backed away from the door and grabbed the bat from under my bed. I could hear them now, just one floor below, walking slowly, checking the house like they'd been there before. They opened the fridge, then slammed it shut. Footsteps getting louder. They were coming up the stairs now. One step at a time. No rush. Just this calm, steady movement that chilled me to my bones. I stared at the doorknob and watched it twitch once. Twice. Stopped by the lock. Then there was silence. And then a whisper, low and slow, right behind the door. Not saying a name, not even forming words. Just breathing sound, controlled, deliberate. Then it stopped. The footsteps moved away, back down the hallway, back down the stairs, fading into the first floor like fog disappearing in the dark. I didn't sleep, didn't even move. I sat behind the door for what felt like hours. My phone still said no signal, and I didn't dare try the landline. Eventually, maybe at dawn, I cracked open the door and peeked out. My room looked normal. But I noticed one thing. The bat was no longer where I'd left it. It was leaned neatly against the wall, right beside the stairs. I never brought it there. I didn't touch it. Someone had moved it. I walked down each step like I was stepping into a trap. The living room was untouched, kitchen clean, basement door wide open. But the back sliding door, the one no one ever uses, was left open just a crack, like someone had slipped out only minutes before. I walked over to close it, and as I did, I saw something that made me stop. A set of muddy footprints, small ones, barefoot, leading from the basement stairs to the door. They didn't match my size, they weren't mine, they weren't my dad's, they were someone else's. I never found out who came into the house that night. My parents filed a report when they got home, but there was nothing to track. No signs of forced entry, no evidence. We changed the locks, installed cameras, alarm systems, but none of that helped me sleep, because sometimes, late at night, when I'm alone again, I think I hear the stairs creak, just once, and I wonder if that same person ever left, or if they're still hiding somewhere in the house, waiting for the next time I'm alone.